foreign direct investment minister is really a lifeline for the economy, not necessarily for the money it brings when privatizing assets or when coming in, but the business practices, managerial practices, access to markets. And this is an area where Ukraine has not done too well yet in terms of attracting foreign investment. Can you tell us, from your perspective, from the Ministry of Justice, what are the steps that you think are important and that you've been doing to make Ukraine more attractive for foreign investors?
For your question, it's indeed a top priority for the government to attract foreign investments and improve business climate in Ukraine. Recently, we were busy with implementation of the land market. It was launched just the 1st of July, and until now, already thousands of transactions were registered by our registers, which means that agri-sector received a huge boost. And many farmers will get access to credit and, conditions for agribusiness will improve significantly. And to a certain extent, it was a legal reform since it was implementation of the property right of many landowners in Ukraine, and this reform was envisaged and pushed by the decision of the European Court for Human Rights. But there are many other areas important and within the area of responsibility of the Ministry of Justice. I would say that we have 4 major pillars related to business climate. 2 of them were already mentioned by my colleague, Mr. Safanchuk. I mean, judicial reform and strengthening of the anti-corruption framework. So in terms of the judicial reform, indeed, we already implemented quite a lot, and we are eager to wait to see how High Qualification Commission of Justice and High Council of Justice will start their operations when the integrity check will be performed by the Ethics Council. And I remind you that in both those bodies, there will be a decisive vote of international experts. That would mean that those bodies, sooner or later, and we expect that to happen sooner, will be independent from vested interests, from oligarchs, and will be able to implement rule of law in the country. We see it as a broader reform than just to improve the judiciary in Ukraine. So we are focused also on ADR, alternative dispute resolution, and that's why draft laws on arbitration, on mediation, and also to a certain extent, this relates to administrative procedure. They are already in the parliament, and some of them are already adopted in the first reading. So that covers pretty much all major areas related to rule of law and justice. With anti-corruption reform, we also already recovered from the decision of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, damaging the whole anti-corruption framework in Ukraine. So everything is in place. The only remaining piece is NABU law, which was adopted in the first reading, and we expect the reform and making the law compliant with the Constitution to happen in autumn, next September, I expect, but we'll see how it goes. We are still in the negotiation with members of parliament, with international donors, etc. But there are 2 other pillars which were not discussed in detail today. First of all is the reform of enforcement agencies. And we are talking here about Secret Service, so-called SBU in Ukrainian. So this body will become more focused on work with terrorist organizations, with acts of aggression, and will stop working with white-collar crimes. And that part of their job will be transferred to the newly established Bureau of Economic Security. So this is going to be an agency focused directly on white-collar crimes, gonna have focus on analytical job rather than, well, making businesses suffer in Ukraine as it happened during the history of Ukraine. So if you ask any businessman in Ukraine, in our country, one of his main danger would be an attack of our enforcement agencies. Sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not, but perception really matters. Well, and last but not the least, is the fourth pillar is enforcement of contracts, which is important to Ukraine, to foreign investors and as well as Ukrainian ones. So this covers, well, not only the reform of state and private bailies, but the main focus will be on digitalization. So one of the news from yesterday was that we significantly extended the application of digital electronic seizure of bank accounts of debtors. So that will make an enforcement procedure much more effective and efficient in Ukraine. So we expect that court rulings will be enforced significantly faster. We also do a lot of efforts and introduce several draft laws lifting different moratoriums on enforcement of court rulings, which is a significant problem for Ukraine. We have plenty of decisions of European Court for Human Rights saying that those moratoriums violates basic human rights and protection of property in Ukraine. So we are working with that, not only simply lifting those moratoriums, but also improving laws governing, for instance, insolvency, which is also important for business climate. So all that combined, we expect will be beneficial for foreign direct investments and business climate in Ukraine. And if we add here anti-oligarch law mentioned by my colleague, and ban of oligarchs from participation in big privatization and complete openness of all contacts with state authorities, that shows pretty much good picture of our efforts, and we'll see by the results and the impact on businesses. We are looking forward to get well, feedback from businesses. Are they satisfied? What needs to be done? Or what needs to be improved soon. So we are at this active stage of implementing a lot of different areas for reforms. Thank you.
Minister, last words from you.
Well, I'd like to tell about two major lessons I've learned with regards to EU assistance and our cooperation. First of all is that previously I thought that EU integration is mainly access to better regulation, to the leading practices. And we can skip the way of discussion, of introduction of or inventing a wheel, but just can get better solutions and apply them in Ukraine. But after some time I learned that it's more about not only about better regulation, but it's also about values. And during the last year, EU is brave enough to recommend and also including the conditionalities, also solutions which are unique to Ukraine. So it's more about values and about ready solutions implemented elsewhere. And this is important, and this is a crucial lesson, and please keep doing that. It's very useful. And the second lessons I learned, and maybe here the view is a bit different, since EU assistance, at least in terms of the rule of law, is focused on integrity, on checking the right people, finding right people, checking their integrity, and replacing bad people with good people. My lesson working for the government is that in most cases, there are not enough right people. Maybe with enough integrity or with experience, they may lack experience, but they could have good integrity. So it's a tough job. not always successful replacing people. For instance, patrol police, just replace all patrol police but new people. That happened, that was successful at a certain stage. It still brings good results right now, but this solution could not be applicable in all areas. We have, and the main focus, maybe I'm wrong, but still it's my opinion, we shall focus on procedures and in most cases to transfer decision-making power from people to algorithms and software. And that's why we will skip the decision-making process and flaws of any personality. So to shift the focus on algorithm, on procedures and software, instead of trying to replace humans, that would be like a way forward, at least in the area covered by the Minister of Justice.